Hi, Parker. Thanks for being here. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Good to be here, Tran. My name's Parker. I'm the director of marketing here at Duvin Design Company.
Awesome. And paint me the picture. What was it like that you were like trying to solve when we started working together?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different answers on what we were trying to solve. Our open rate had sort of taken a dive. We were around 25-30%. We couldn't really get our list above, a certain threshold. And I think our pop-up was also severely underperforming, before we kind of engaged with Thrivelia.
Awesome. So what was the consequence of that on a daily basis in terms of on a business scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, those things all coupled together, you really just lose out on new customers. You lose out on making those new customers returning customers. And at the end of the day, just really not generating as much revenue as we could on that channel, given who we are as a brand. So I think ultimately we just knew we were underperforming slightly, and we had the tools. We just needed a little bit more guidance and help in getting there.
You also mentioned things when we were like prepping for like the list size. That was also a goal of yours, wasn't it? You mentioned that you want to grow it to a certain stage.
Yeah. I think ultimately our list size was a little bit under 100K, and we were struggling to kind of scale it to that point. And you guys really helped us, I think, optimize all different touch points in the user journey to kind of help us get above that threshold and really just increase our addressable audience. So
Tell me, what were you skeptical about? So when you first heard of my agency, of my team, of me, even I think I was on the road in Barcelona, if I remember like correctly. So I was like guy on the camera on the phone, and we were like chatting. But I was like jogging in a suit and sweating in a suit. So what were the main hesitations that you guys had before starting to work with?
I think hesitation that I typically have with any agency is that the intro calls and kind of the pitches that you hear from people like yourself who are extremely knowledgeable in the space are great. And then kind of once you get underway and the work starts, you get handed off to people who are less senior, less knowledgeable, and ultimately the kind of level of service that you are sold, not necessarily what you get. However, I will say, as we kind of started with the engagement and, began working with Juan and Kalina, that was definitely not the case. It was very apparent, how well run Thrivelia is as an agency and how well you do educating and kind of disseminating knowledge to everybody that, works at Thrivelia with you. So everybody was extremely professional through and through. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't recommend you guys enough in that. But, that's always something that I think people are skeptical about going into an engagement is that, the head of the snake is always, going to be the cream of the crop. And then, when you kind of get down into the nitty gritty, maybe the level of service is kind of not as white glove as you would have hoped.
Yeah, and I see this on a daily basis as well, which is, by the way, how most of the agencies are scaled. It is tricky because it makes it quicker to scale our business. So it's much harder to build a team, but it's daily, just like daily effort, like of back and forth of how do we make ourselves better.
Yeah.
So what made you, in that case, like when you were hesitating, we hadn't have met the team at that point. So what made you move forward anyway with Thrivelia?
I think just the general level of organization that you guys provided. We also were given sort of a free audit of our flows and rebuild of all of our flows, which I think showed a ton of goodwill and was a tryout, almost, so to speak. But really, I think just how you guys conducted yourself, the organization, the communication was prompt, thorough. You guys were always extremely flexible with, people being in different time zones and across the globe. Like you said, you were in Barcelona. I think the first time we had a call just really stood out. And I think you guys truly just try to do right by your clients. And I think that's not something you can really fake at the end of the day is being genuine like that.
Thank you. So let's talk numbers. What concrete results would you say you have seen since working together? Like what was really the uplift from like all metrics?
Yeah, I mean, I think a few stand out to me. Most namely, I would say our pop up was pretty much doubled or tripled overnight. The overall sign up rate and engagement numbers that we got from working with you guys, which was huge. That really helped us, not only bring in new customers, but make those new customers into returning customers as well. And it also allowed us just to understand our customer a little bit more as well. So, the testing that we did with that pop up and, how we collected information from our customers really changed. And I think that was impactful for, not only email, but, how we approach other sides of the business as well. Audience segmentation was a big one for us. So I think that really helped us unlock just a better open rate without necessarily sacrificing, how many people we were sending to. So I think you guys really steered us in the right direction on that, helping us get our open rates from, 25 to 35% up to, 45, 55%. Sometimes cracking the 60% range, which was extremely helpful. Couldn't thank you guys enough for helping us scale all of that.
So I suppose like it is safe to presume that because the list grew, we saw a lot more acquisition, and because we were also working on the retention, we did see a bit of a like change on the retention. Have you sort of discussed that? Have you looked into that as a business, like what that meant on a business level with that increased capacity in terms of like just purely like cash flow?
Yeah, definitely. I think, anytime that you can acquire customers in a very cheap manner, like, with the pop-up, it's invaluable, and especially if you can then turn those people into returning customers. So it's sort of a double-edged sword where, you're kind of getting them on the front end with the pop-up and then, keeping them around on the back end with all of the flows and all of that. And so, I mean, I think from, a pure user acquisition standpoint, we saw a ton of efficiency in the months that we worked together. So yeah, we were thrilled about that.
That's amazing. And beyond the numbers, like what changed entirely for like the team with like for you personally, just being working with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll go back to one of my answers before where I think there's just a level of organization that, is sort of unlocked and parent when working with you guys. And I really think that, having that level of organization and keeping all of our ducks in a row, helps save me time, helps save, other members of our team time, which ultimately is really all you can ask for. And, I think is obviously worth it in every scenario. So like I said, I think the flexibility you guys provide, the organization, the communication, is all just extremely professional.
Awesome. And I like appreciate you for saying that. It is the most valuable asset. It's the only unreturnable asset. So
Exactly.
uh, to wrap things up, so to anyone that is wondering if they should start with us, what would you tell them, and who do you think will be the best brand to work with us?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just do it, trust your gut. And, as I've said, like I think you guys are extremely professional from top to bottom, and it didn't matter who I worked with at the organization as well. Everybody was extremely helpful. Shout out to Juan, shout out to Kalina. They handled our account with such care. And, I could also see the people behind the scenes like get better at, understanding our brand tone, verbiage, and positioning as well. The quality of the emails, really, I say, improved over time as well. And so it truly did feel like an extension of our business, which was great. And in terms of who I think would be good fits for Thrivelia, anybody that feels like they're just spending too much time on email, they don't have the resources, they don't have the ability to kind of really dig in and sink their teeth into some of the nitty gritty nuance that truly helps you scale and really, squeeze out all of the revenue from that channel would be a great fit. Anybody that's really trying to hit the gas pedal and truly grow on that side of the business is a good fit for you guys, without a doubt.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this. I will wrap up with one thing, and I would say that everyone should subscribe to Duvin's newsletter because it is the best newsletter in terms of what you can read on a Monday.
Yeah.
It is the one that I read from brands that we working with. So it's just like a really cool brand to work with. So we've been really privileged to help Duvin, and I'm excited for the future as well. So thank you so much for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the kind words. Yeah, I mean, like I've said, it's been great working with you guys. So hopefully we cross paths again.
Thank you.
Yeah.